Good evening. I call this meeting of August 13th, 2020 in order at 7:06. This regular board meeting for Thursday, August 13th, 2020 will be conducted completely online. The Governor's Executive Order N-25-20 relaxes the Brown Act requirements for holding public meetings via teleconference. This meeting will be recorded and televised. Members of the public may attend via the public viewing link provided below. Public viewing link will be provided via TV 28 on cable TV or by streaming from TV 28. Per normal practice, the meeting will be live streamed and available at www.tv30 for viewing and also broadcast live on Comcast TV channel 28 beginning at 7 p.m. Online speaker slips will be available and the public will be able to call in using a computer or smartphone via a link which will be provided following submission of a speaker slip. A telephonic option will also be available. Once connected, the public speaker will be placed in an online waiting room. While in the waiting room, the public speaker should watch or listen to the meeting via the outlets above, as they will not see or hear the meeting while they are connected and waiting to speak. When the agenda item upon which the individual would like to comment is addressed, the speaker will be announced in the meeting as to when it is his or her time to speak to the school board of trustees. The speaker will then be moved to the meeting for comment. TV 30 is allowing only audio at this time, adding a full screen public comment when the speaker is talking. Yellow comment form for items only on the agenda. Individual speakers shall be allowed no more than 2 minutes to address the board on this item for the sake of time. In an effort to make our board meetings more accessible to our community, we wanted to share a new process for assessing closed captioning and providing input through public comment. Visit the board agenda you would like to access closed captioning for, and this is linked to all agenda postings. Fill out the closed captioning request form. We will follow up via email with a link to access the board meeting via Zoom. Ensure that you have the most current version of Zoom installed on your computer or mobile device. Click on the Zoom meeting link prior to the start of the board meeting. Please use your full name when entering. You will initially be placed in a waiting room. Once you have been admitted into the meeting, you will be able to view the meeting with closed captions by checking on the CC button on the bottom of your Zoom window. Please use this option only if you require closed captioning. At this time, I would like to say the Pledge of Allegiance, if it could come to attention, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I'd like to introduce our cabinet members and board of trustees. Julio Hernandez, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. Ahmad Shiko Leslawi, Assistant Superintendent of Business Services. Ed Dialazo, Assistant Superintendent of Student Services. Dr. Janelle Woodward, Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning. Trustee Mark Miller, Trustee Joan Larson, Trustee Valerie Arkin, Board Vice President Jamie Yee. I am Board President Steve Maher, Superintendent Dave Haglund, Patrick Gannon, Coordinator of Communications and Community Engagement, Roseanne Pryor, Administrative Assistant to the Superintendent. At this time, I'd like to read and report out from our closed session. On item 2.1.1, the board voted 5-0 with motion made by Mark Miller, seconded by Joan Larson, and a 5-0 vote to ratify the appointment of Vice Principal Hillary Sowers of Leidixon Elementary School. Is Hillary here that she could say a few words?
Hello, yes, I am here. Thank you.
Ah, good. You're on, Hillary.
Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. I very much appreciate having this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to working with everyone in the school community this year.
Thank you. We're looking forward to seeing you when we get it back open.
Welcome.
Welcome. Okay. Item 2.1.2, the board voted 5-0 with the motion made by Trustee Harkin and seconded by Trustee Yee to appoint Kenneth Goykins as a Senior Director of Special Education. Kenneth, are you here?
Yes, I am, sir. Hello.
Good. Hi, Kenneth. Or do you go by Ken?
Yeah, Ken. I just use Kenneth as my legal name. So yes, Ken is fine.
Or your mother, Kenny?
Yes, that's right. That's my mom. Yes, yes.
Would you like to say a few words?
Well, I'm very excited, sir, to be in the school district. I had applied a few years ago and made it to the second round. It's a wonderful district. I grew up in the Central Valley, and I'm excited and looking forward to this opportunity. I start next Thursday. I'm sorry you guys wanted me to start Wednesday, but that's my birthday, so my family wanted to spend it with me. So I'm coming in on Thursday, and I'm totally excited about it and be there bright and early.
Good. Thank you. Congratulations.
Welcome,
Thank you,
Ken.
sir. Thank
Okay.
you.
Item 2.3. Board voted 5-0 with motion made by Trustee Arkin and second by Trustee Miller to approve a compromise and release agreement for internal case SCD 270.19.20 for the amount not to exceed $75,000. Item 2.4. The board voted 5-0 with the motion made by Trustee Larson and second by Trustee Miller to approve a compromise and release agreement for internal case SCD 230.19.20 for the amount not to exceed $15,950. Item 2.5, on closed session, the board voted 5-0 with motion made by Trustee Larson and second by Trustee Arkin to approve a compromise and release agreement for internal case number SCD 101.20.21 for the amount not to exceed $28,500. And that concludes the report on closed session. Okay, to now have the approval of the agenda.
I'll move approval of the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay. Trustee Miller,
Aye.
Trustee Larson,
Aye.
Trustee Yee,
Aye.
Trustee Arkin,
Aye.
and Trustee Maher, aye. The motion carries the approval of the agenda. Okay, recognitions and introductions. Dr. Hagley.
So very good. Thank you, President Maher. Tonight's recognition, I would like to hand over to Dr. Janelle Woodward as we acknowledge the many individuals who contributed to the professional development that was prepared by the team that helped the whole team get ready for the beginning of the school year, a year like no other. So we want to say thank you as their work is coming to fruition right now. So Dr. Woodward.
Thank you so much, Dr. Haglund, and good evening. I'm President Maher, members of the board, cabinet, and community. Such a pleasure to be with you tonight. So we are very, very excited to be able to recognize our integration specialists this evening for their thoughtful and high quality professional development that they provided to certificated and classified staff prior to the beginning of the year. The talented integration specialist team includes Kelly Hilton, Lisa Highfill, Scott Padway, and Eric Little. Throughout the week on July 27th through the 31st, we had over 300 teachers per day, and actually I think that's a very, very low number, that participated in workshops. In fact, in some sessions, the amount of attendees exceeded virtual room capacity, and we had to create overflow sections on YouTube. The trainings that I attended and the engagement of our staff, it was absolutely phenomenal. And this week, as we visited classrooms remotely, we are absolutely seeing evidence of the quality of training. The professional development was created to support the following strands: effective remote instruction, equity and inclusion, assessment, social emotional learning, and special education and supporting students who are English language learners. The sessions were then followed by additional coaching by the integration specialists, therefore allowing staff to work through areas of growth with support from our experts. As well, we are thankful for the resources shared by our integration specialists that also added great value to our August 7th Professional Development Day. Again, the reviews for their sessions and their professional development, as always, has been incredibly positive. We just can't say enough about this talented team. So joining us tonight to receive the recognition on behalf of the entire team will be Eric Little and Scott Padway.
Thank you, Dr. Woodward. Those words are really kind. Dr. Haglund, cabinet members of the board, as long as schools have existed, there's been a time and space to learning. And in March, that just changed in a way that none of us would have imagined. We've always talked with you about blended learning and best practices of being online and offline. And here we are starting a brand new school year completely digitally. And on behalf of the team integration specialists, Lisa, Kelly, Eric, and myself, we're just so grateful of the decisions that have been made over the years here. Well, not here, but in the boardroom, that have invested in our teachers and our students to even put us in a position to succeed and thrive in this new educational landscape. As a team, we're continually in awe of the professionalism and dedication of the Pleasanton teachers.
Yeah, many teachers spent their summer working and trying to figure out how to best meet the needs of the students. And when we knew that we were starting remotely, the teaching and learning team launched this week of PD that Janelle was talking about. We wanted to inspire our teachers and model strategies and ideas that best engage our students digitally. So these past few days, I've had the opportunity of working with teachers and jumping into classes, seeing them engaging students and trying new things, utilizing breakout rooms, chats. Scott even got a chance to participate today in a small team of students in a digital escape room. My own daughter has been engaged in Smart Start activities as teachers got to know their students using Flipgrid, forms, slide decks, Padlets, and more. They say that this is moving us forward digitally about 5 years. And we're just, as coaches, Kelly and Lisa, Scott and I, we're so humbled by the way our teachers are rising to the occasion. Our Pleasanton students, they just deserve the very best. And we believe our teachers are delivering that right now.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. At a future board meeting, we will also be recognizing additional staff that provided to our professional development.
Thank you, Dr. Woodward.
Well done, guys.
Now we move on to our associations. And first of all, we have California School Employee Association, CSEA, and Laura Martinez. Is Laura with us tonight?
I'm here.
Oh, good. Hi, Laura.
Hi. So good evening, Board of Trustees, Dr. Haglund, Cabinet, and members of the community. The summer was a very busy summer. I personally attended 81 meetings regarding many areas within PUC about the budget, the reopening steering committee, the reopening task force, interviews for staff, special education, and human resources. The main goal of these meetings was to support student learning, whether fully remote, in a hybrid model, or when the schools are finally reopened. So this summer break was very different for me and many staff, from classified, certificated administrators, and leadership. They volunteered their time to figure out the future of educating our students, be it remote, hybrid, Flex Academy, or reopening our schools. We've done our best to offer up solutions and ideas. Approximately 40% of our classified bargaining unit members continue to return to work in person to process invoices, pay our bills and employees, clean and disinfect our buildings, care for our grounds and buildings, care for our children in the district's child supervision program, Kids Club, Horizon, and STEAM Preschool, feed our students and families within the community, keep our technology running, deliver Chromebooks, textbooks, and other materials as needed. Our staff working virtually continue to support our administrators, certificated staff, students, and the community. We've kicked off the first week of remote distance learning, working side by side with our certificated staff to educate the students of Pleasanton. We show up ready to work, and it is imperative our members feel safe have the proper personal protective equipment, and are assured that protocols are clear and enforced. We believe that we have a shared interest with the board and the district in safeguarding employees, students, and the community. Our CSEA negotiations team met 7 times during the summer, bargaining plans regarding returning to work and beginning a new school year. For protective personal equipment, identifying safety protocols, to establish disinfecting cleaning standards, and provide mechanisms for accommodations and the use of leaves. We've come prepared, done the work, and continue to work on ensuring the rights and protections of our members. We're optimistic that we can reach an agreement soon on these important matters. There is still much work ahead of us for this new school year. We are fortunate to have an incredible team of classified professionals fully committed to working as a team with certificated staff and management to support our students. This school year will be an ever-changing endeavor as we all work together to give our students our best. Let's remember to work together, provide support and grace as we navigate what is sure to be an interesting and challenging school year. I have faith and know we will do our part to serve our students, community, and PUSD. Thank you for your time and have a good evening.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, Association of Pleasanton Teachers, APT. I'd like to introduce Michelle McKylan.
Good evening, President Maher, members of the board, Dr. Haglund, members of the cabinet, and our community. I am Michelle Verkylen, president of the Association of Pleasanton Teachers. And we're off. Another school year has begun with bright and shiny faces, and although we are viewing them through a screen, the excitement of a new year is still permeating the atmosphere. Having spoken with many teachers over the last few days, there are still the usual feelings that accompany the first week: excitement, nervousness, hesitancy, ready to go, but most of all, happy to be getting back to doing the work with our students. I stand in awe of their work ethic and their work product. This summer was filled with the unknown, and our members, teachers, counselors, nurses, psychologists, program specialists, intervention specialists, integration specialists, librarians, clinicians, behaviorists, therapists, speech and language pathologists, social workers, and other specialists and members on special assignment have collectively spent thousands of volunteer hours this summer in researching, problem solving, designing, creating, collaborating, and learning. They only had 2 true days of work before beginning this year, and though things have been in a constant change mode, they showed up on that first day of school ready to do what they do best: teach and serve the students of Pleasanton. We realize the road may be a bit bumpier this year as everyone adjusts into a new mode of education delivery. And so we ask you all to join with us on this new adventure. We look forward to getting to know our new classes, students, and families, and providing instruction in new ways. There are things the pandemic is teaching all of us: patience, kindness, empathy, perseverance, and resiliency. These are skills and traits that will serve everyone well in life. As we ride along on this journey, we continue to appreciate the partnerships we have with our families, CSEA, and our administrators. We count on you all to envelop and lift up our students with us to take them to the next level in their educational lives. Please keep us all safe and provide all the supports needed so that we can give our students all they truly deserve in this new digitized landscape in which we teach and serve. As always, APT sends out thoughts for the safety, health, and well-being of all our students, family, and community, because Pleasanton students deserve the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, next we go to community comments. Comments from the audience.
All right, President Maher, we have 2 public comments this evening. The first comes from Devansh Pandey, and then he'll be followed by Chong Wang.
Okay, if you please can remind them that they have 2 minutes.
All right, you got that, Devansh, 2 minutes.
Please.
Good evening, members of the board, superintendent, and every member of the community who is listening today. I've come to address an incredibly important issue plaguing not only me, but hundreds of other secondary students across the school district who day after day are having problems with the technology that's being used in remote learning. Simply put, the fact that teachers are using many different platforms, from Google Classroom to their websites, to Google Slides, to Google Docs, to assign work to students, makes it nearly impossible for the average student to keep everything organized like they would in physical school with a physical planner. This is a problem because it hurts students, parents, and teachers in the long run, with everyone having to do more work just to keep up. This is completely unacceptable, and the district should not permit this to continue. The majority of teachers currently use Google Classroom to assign all work, but many choose to use their websites, sheets, docs, or other complex and inefficient methods to assign work, making school more difficult for students and their parents. PUSD Board of Trustees, Superintendent, I implore you to pass a board policy and administrative regulation that ensures that teachers will be required to post all work on Google Classroom instead of, or in addition to, their current method. Teachers, I know this might seem like an unwelcome change, but in the long term, it benefits both you and your students. If all your work is on Google Classroom, you will receive an order of magnitude fewer emails from students and parents asking about why the work they submitted was marked missing or late. You'll have a single hub to assign and grade all work, and you'll be making life 1,000 times easier for every student who is in your class. Teachers, I plead you, if you have not done so already, post each of your assignments on Google Classroom, and if you need to, request the help of your tech-savvy students, who will almost always be more than willing to help with any technological problems that you may have. Finally, I implore the community to participate in this change, to use your voice, students and parents. Go to change.org/PUSD homework. That's change.org/PUSD homework. And all of you, each and every one of you, can easily and directly sign a petition for change in Pleasanton USD. Members of the community, Board of Trustees, administrators, and superintendent, we need to do better for our students, we need to do better for our parents, and we need to do better for our teachers. Thank you all.
Thank you. John?
Can you hear me now?
Yep,
okay.
You can.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chong Wang, and I'm running for PUSD school board this year. My two kids are so excited to go back to school virtually this week, and they had a good experience in the first 2 school days. Many parents and I had a question about the bell schedule. For the remote learning hours after 1 p.m. and also on Wednesday, how does the student utilize the time effectively for their learning? Would it be possible to add mandatory Zoom check-in for the teacher-led office hour? The student may use the time to group discussion, to have for group discussion, or do their homework together. It will be helpful for the student to connect with each other and allow parents to focus on their work. Also, Wednesday is originally arranged to have no instruction hour to allow time to cleaning the classroom and the transition when the kids are back on campus. Since we are currently all remote, would it be possible to add more instructional hours on Wednesday? I understand that school district is constantly adjusting and improving the schedule, and would be appreciate a consideration of my suggestion. I do notice that there are 2 opening positions to be discussed today, which shows the effort of school districts are trying to support remote learning. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Nobody else, Patrick? Patrick?
Sorry, had to take myself off mute. That's it for tonight, President Maher.
Okay, superintendent's report.
All right, thank you, President Maher. Today marked day 3 of the 2021 school year, which is definitely a historic and unprecedented experience for everyone involved. Our school teams, from principals to teachers to classified staff, all modeled the kind of resilience, resourcefulness, engagement, and responsibility that we strive every day to inspire in our students. I'm incredibly proud to be a part of this amazing team. On Tuesday, August 11th, Team PUSD made history in this community by successfully opening the first day of school in full remote learning. It was inspiring to see our teachers find new ways to connect and engage students. While we did not promise perfection, our teachers showed this community how they rise in the face of adversity. I had the pleasure of visiting more than my usual number of classrooms on the first day of school. Thanks to reduced travel time, Dr. Woodward and I were able to pop into Maestra Dow's DLI classroom at Valley View, stop by Mrs. McCutcheon's third grade class at Fairlands, spent some time with the Alisal Bears in fifth grade classroom of Mrs. Latona. We went to stop by the Hart School, the remote classroom of Mrs. Wetlow. And we also spent time with Mr. Grantham and Mr. Dandria during their wind ensemble class at Amador Valley High School. And then last but not least, spent a little bit of time with our 2020 Teacher of the Year, Mr. Josh Hill, during his biomed classes at Foothill High School. So we bounced around quite a bit and saw lots of excited students and some great work being done by our teaching staff. So well done, everybody. While we were separated by distance, our staff found ways to create meaningful experiences for students at the start of the year. We look forward to engaging with the community during virtual back to school events in the coming few weeks. As we continue to learn together and will work to best serve our students moving forward, we encourage families and staff to participate in our thought exchange by tomorrow, Friday, August 14th. That link relating to how it's going and what we need to do is linked on our website. So please participate within the next 24 hours. That's been open for a while, but it closes down on Friday. We've also been making the most out of the physical closures of schools. Our facilities and construction and maintenance teams are making exciting progress on a number of projects. The Measure I-1 projects are seeing progress, including Leidixon Elementary's modernization project that's beginning to take real shape as the building foundations have been laid and the new walls, I believe, are coming in the next week or so. So those buildings are going to take shape pretty quickly. We've been doing roofing and HVAC replacement projects at Alisal and Fairlands Elementary School, as well as Pleasanton and Harvest Park middle schools, and those are nearing completion. Our new Foothill and Amador classroom projects are moving forward out of DSA, and those approved projects will be moving forward before we know it. To help maintain our school buildings, Vintage Hills, Pleasanton Middle School, and Amador Valley High School are also getting fresh paint jobs, and we'll continue to revitalize additional campuses for when as we can, prior to welcoming our students back. So those projects will continue. And finally, the Harvest Park Middle School Library is coming back to life. Special thank you to Stacy Crowder-Leo for all her photojournalism skills. She's been taking and posting pictures of the project all along the way, so we appreciate that. In closing, I would like to share a message that an educator posted on social media on Monday, and here it goes. To my fellow teachers who are starting the year now or soon, I gave my students a task today that was very enlightening for me, so I thought I would share. I asked them, after reviewing expectations for our learning management system and Zoom meetings, and after going over grading policies, to give me one expectation that they had of me as their teacher. The responses I got from them had nothing to do with technical skills or pedagogy. They had nothing to do with content or rigor. The responses I got from students were as follows. Please be fair and realistic, be engaging and fun, be understanding and flexible, be clear and be helpful. Basically, whether you're a veteran teacher or a first year, no matter what subject you teach or what grade level, All your students want from you is to be a good person to go through this journey of learning with. They don't need you to be a pedagogical whiz, an ed tech savant, or a teacher of the year. They need you. And just in case you needed this message today, like I did, you are enough for them. To our teachers, on behalf of the board and cabinet and myself, I want to say thank you. And thank you to all of our administrative and classified staff and parent volunteers who continue to work tirelessly to make a difference in the lives of our students and our families. You're making a huge difference. Thank you. That's my comments.
Thank you, Dr. Haglund. Next item is consent agenda. These are items that require the approval of the board, but are of routine nature. They act upon these terms in one vote. Any member may remove an item for additional questions. Board members receive their agendas and backup material 5 days in advance of our meetings. They have the opportunity to ask questions and do research prior to our meeting. It is their intent to handle the routine items expeditiously so that they have time to address more serious issues. And Joan, I believe you had one you wanted to pull?
Yes, President Maher, I need to pull 11.14.
Okay. And do I have a motion for the other item?
I'll move approval of the consent agenda with the exception of 11.14.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Larson?
Aye.
Trustee Harkin?
Aye.
Trustee Yee?
Aye.
And Trustee Maher, aye. Consent agenda is approved except for item 11.14. Joan?
Really quickly, I don't have any questions about this, although I will make a comment that I'm very excited for this opportunity for our district. But as an employee of the Alameda County Office of Education, I need to make that known that I am an employee of the ACOE and that this MOU in connection with program at ACOE.
With programs at ACOU.
This is interesting. I'm getting a little feedback.
I know.
Connection at ACOU.
Can you guys still hear me without the echo?
Can you hear me without the echo?
McCartney, I think what we're hearing is the person who's doing the captioner.
Thank you. And perfect. Anyway, so I just need to disclose that I'm an employee. This MOU doesn't have anything, it does not have any relationship to my area in ACOE or my employment. Therefore, I do not need to recuse myself. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve 11.14.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Larson?
Aye.
Trustee Yee?
Aye.
Trustee Arkin?
Aye.
And Trustee Maher, aye. 11.14 carries. Okay, now moving on to report, discussion, and possible action. 12.1. And I believe that Ahmad and then John, I guess, do it together.
Yes. Good evening, board members. In the consent agenda was the approval of the notice of completion for our solar array project at Amador. The system is fully functioning and producing power, and power is being stored in batteries as needed. So that's a really exciting thing, and took a while. There's a lot of red tape, PG&E, and details to go through that, but it is producing power. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to John Trostic, our Director of Facilities and Construction, to present item 12.1.
Thank you, Ahmad. Good evening, President Maher, board members, Superintendent Dr. Haglund, cabinet members, and the community. Tonight is a relatively routine type of agenda item. It's the close of the contract for the power purchase agreement with the original party that we were in agreement with, which is REC Solar. Now, a few things have happened. And so this agenda item is actually covering the assigning of the PPA, the power purchase agreement, from REC Solar to a Westbound Solar LLC, who is an affiliate of Duke Energy. And it's more of a technicality, legal aspect that we just have to do. The next thing that this will change is the commercial operation date. We had some we had some PG&E delays. We had the COVID going on. Everybody had some sort of delay going on. So we are just literally changing the date from January 31st, 2020 to June 30th of 2020. And then the third thing this does is it lowers the power price. And it's a small amount, but with a lot of energy, it adds up over time. So, so it's a benefit all the way around. And it actually, what we're recommending, the administration recommends that the board authorize the First Amendment and notice of assignment between Westbound Solar LLC, who is an affiliate of Duke Energy, and the Pleasanton Unified School District.
Do we have questions or comments?
I just have a question. Can you describe what the PPA prepayment represents?
That is an agreement up front that the PPA provider gets early on. So this has already been agreed by the board in the original agreement when this was started. And so there is a 10% final payment that we're actually just now processing, which is $65,000. So it is a prepaid and pre-agreed amount of money.
John, that came out of Prop 39 funds?
Yes.
Any other discussion or questions? Okay, and this is an action to approve. Do I have a motion?
I'll go ahead and approve 12.1.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Larson.
Aye.
Trustee Arkin.
Aye.
Trustee Yee.
Aye.
And Trustee Maher, aye. Carries 5-0. Okay, 12.2, Ahmed.
Yes, I'm going to share my screen.
I might add, this is discussion, review, and possible action and 45-day budget revision.
Great, thank you, President Maher. And what we have here is our 45-day budget revision. And the board adopted the 2021 budget back in the end of June. We had to take that action by that time, as it's a requirement to submit our budget to the county by the end of the month. Prior to just around the time we had approved it and a few days afterwards, the state approved their budget, and then the governor signed and enacted it at the end of the month. And there's significant changes in that budget. And so when there is significant changes in the budget, it is customary for the district then to issue this 45-day budget revision. The budget revision does not require board action, but we are seeking it. Ed Code requires that the changes to the budget be posted on the website by that 45-day window, and we have done that both through the posting on the agenda item, but also on our website, we have posted those changes. In the presentation, I'd like to review what has been enacted in the state budget and how it affects us. We'll review the 45-day budget revisions kind of on a line item basis, and then also look at the multi-year budget planning as that has also been impacted by those changes. And then we'll also look at the next steps going forward, because I think that's the most critical thing, is that we now have time to plan for the out years, which is really critical. And that's what the current budget has allowed us to do. So in the enacted budget, the state basically maintained their 2019-20 funding levels. However, there was no cost of living adjustment. And that restored about $11 million of revenues for PUSD, and we'll go into the details of that shortly. In addition, there was no categorical program reductions as well. We've talked about the deferrals. There's about $11 billion of deferrals that will start in February. and that will impact our cash flow. And we do plan to bring cash flow analysis and planning to the board in September. And one of the reasons we're waiting to present that to the board in September is we are also waiting to see if there is basically additional funding coming to schools or to the state to support school districts. And if that happens, then the state will be able to reduce the amount of deferrals that it currently is planning. In addition, the funding includes a large amount of funding around the learning loss mitigation funding, and we'll go into some of those details, but just want to make it real clear that this funding is targeted, restricted, and meant to help school districts in the remote distance learning format or hybrid, and really to support students in these challenging times, and especially the students who have a harder time getting some of the content digitally. In addition, the budget included additional funding for special education. However, that was less than we were hoping, so there would be a slight adjustment in our planning. The budget continued to include the pension relief that we've talked about. However, the rates are expected to go back up to the pre-relief rates in 2022-23, and may, for PERS, go even higher because they're not getting the same rate of return on their investments. There's also some certificated and classified staff protections, additional language around ADA hold harmless for 1920. And also we've heard just recently they're working out some details to allow school districts that grow in enrollment to capture funding. So we'll see what our numbers are. In a few weeks, we'll get some better numbers from student services and our attendance. And if we have had growth, we will be able to capture those additional dollars. Distance learning standards, and also the learning continuity and attendance plan, which need to be submitted to the state by the end of September. So one of the areas that I kind of wanted to highlight is the various funding to help school districts around the COVID-19. There are two components. One is the SB 117, which was pretty much a quick infusion of funding at the end of the year provided by the state. The district received about $250,000, and most of those funds have already been expended to support PPE, materials, custodial, and cleaning. In addition, the district received some funding through the federal government. They're called the ESSER funds, and those funds do have greater flexibility. However, they were dispersed on a Title I basis, and so we're not a very large Title I school, so our proportion of that is much smaller. However, the district was funded through the learning loss mitigation funds, and that includes a combination of state and federal funding, the majority being the federal funding through the CARES Act. And these are restricted funding that will be audited by the federal government, and they are very specific and targeted to the purpose. And so this is just a snapshot of that language, which is included in SB 98, Section 110. And the translation of that is somewhat these examples you see around summer school, support, professional development, Saturday school, after school programs, pretty much anything that's related to technology and distance learning and software and hardware, and professional development and variety of enhancements. And so we have actually been utilizing those funds. The regulations around that allow the districts to spend the money as they're putting the plan together. So for example, at I believe it was the July board meeting, you authorized the purchase of Chromebooks. And so we're proceeding with those. We have purchased software, and we're purchasing a lot of distance related type of material and equipment. In addition, in tonight's board meeting, there's an action item to fund positions that will help with that distance learning integration curriculum support that is greatly needed. So that's where the funding can be spent on. The funding also has a critical deadlines, and you can see these two are the ones that I was talking about that have greatest flexibility, but they're also the least of which we've received. The other funding, mostly around the CARES Act, is this group around here. They're broken up into different buckets, and they have different accounting and resource that we are using. Most of the funds have to be spent by the end of December. Not sure why they chose December 30th, but that is what the federal government has done. We are hoping for flexibility in this regard. I think when the federal government put this program together, they were probably thinking that the COVID situation would have been, subsided by now. However, it will, from all indications, will probably continue as all year. So we're hoping for flexibility on that. You will see that a portion of that does go through a longer period. And so we're obviously going to be very strategic on planning to be able to meet all these deadlines in our planning that we'll present to the board in about a month. Looking at the details, so this column represents the approved adopted budget. These three columns represent the adjustments, and then this is what the final budget will look like. I do want to point out that the unrestricted means the district has a discretion on the areas that it wants to expend those funds. Restricted means that they have to be spent in those particular areas where the funding has been required. So that's mostly the learning loss mitigation funds. And so you'll see that this has to do with the increase in the local funding control funding formula, where the state reinstated the 1920 levels. The increase in the federal dollars is directly tied to the CARES Act. And then again, we talked about some adjustments in special education, less than what we were anticipating the state to provide us. So that is the change in our revenues, about 11 million in unrestricted and about 5.6 in restricted funding. Similarly, we are looking at adjustments to our expenditure planning. And anything you see in the restricted column is what is our initial planning for the learning loss mitigation funds. As we go through the continuity plan, those will be adjusted, and we'll bring any adjustments back to the board probably at the first interim report. The reason there is additional expenditures indicated in the adjustments here is in our adopted budget, we included planning for $11 million of reduction. And with the restoration of funds for the state for the 1920, staff is now recommending about $5.4 million of reductions. So these dollars are now flowing back to some of those programs that we were looking at making those cuts and reductions in. So we're still making reductions, but we're not making as much. So that's why there's a positive number in the majority of those columns. And so that brings us to the next sheet, which again, there's some adjustments in the services columns as well. And that puts our total expenditures at about 173. What's not included in the expenditures, but it must be considered in our planning, and you'll see it in our ending fund balance, is that the district will need to contribute to the child nutrition fund. And we've currently put a plug of about $1.5 million of contribution. We still have to run the program and maintain all our employees as required by the budget that was approved by the state. And so unfortunately, in the remote setting, we're not going to be able to have as much sales. And we may have a reduction in the number of lunches and breakfasts that we get out through the federal program as well. So we're going to make all the effort possible to maximize our sales and maximize our free and reduced disbursements of food on a daily basis. However, we realize that without school on a regular basis and our ability to sell our paid meals, we will have a shortfall in that area. And so we put that 1.5 million as a contribution. Looking at the multi-year budget, this is the estimated actuals. We actually were looking at a net operating of 9.6, and that was planned. We are hoping that when we close the books and when we bring the unaudited actuals, there'll be additional dollars that will be carried over and increase our general fund reserve and help us out in the future. So we'll bring that information to the board in early September. This column over here represents the adjusted numbers, as I indicated, with the ad and the revenue increases and planned expenditures, both in the restricted and unrestricted. We are looking at about a $1.5 million net operating loss. However, we do have reserve funds, and we still are looking at about a 6% reserve rate. Continuing our current planning with no reductions in 21-22, but maintaining the current reductions that we have in the budget and a flat growth in terms of our revenues. And the reason you see a drop there is because of the loss of the one-time learning loss mitigation funds. So we will see our revenues flat for the next few years, and we're going to see our expenditures and normal pressures and expenditures increase. However, we will be for the following year, 21-22, we'll be be able to still meet the requirements of the minimum 3% with no reductions. However, in the outer year, this red box will require about $6 million of reductions. And so how we go about planning that is still to be determined. We may actually start to make reductions in 21-22 to make the reductions here less. There's a lot of variables still floating out there, and we'll have to see how they land. But what we do know is if flat funding remains, we will have to make reductions in the out years. And that's what is really going to be the gist of my next slides and some of the discussions. This is a snapshot of where our reductions are allocated to at this time. Again, at the first interim, there'll be some adjustments, and we may get some additional savings or adjustments in some of these staffings. We had to make some assumptions as we were planning the 45-day budget. And so we'll see where it lands at the end. But we're looking about $5.2 million reductions and hoping to see some increased revenues. And when we realize those in the first interim or second interim, we'll add that to the budget as well. So looking at the future, PSD is heavily reliant on the state funding formula. And the state's funding is related directly to the health of the economy, as Prop 98 sets minimum guarantees for K-12. So as the state's revenues decrease, that minimum guarantee will also be adjusted. And the COVID-19 pandemic has set the economy into recession, and the recovery time is unclear. And so we expect that the next 3 to 4 years, we'll see flat or reduced state funding for school districts. And to that end, we really need to be strategic now in our planning, both in expenditures and also to look at revenues as well to help weather the pending fiscal turbulence. And just to kind of show some of that, I wanted to just remind everyone about Prop 98. It was set in 1988 to create stabilization of school funding. However, it is a very complex formula that sets different types of test standards by which schools are funded. But primarily the key in here is that our state funding is tied to the health of the economy, and we get a portion of the general revenues. And so when the general revenues decrease, our portion decreases as well. And I stole these slides from School Services of California. And this indicates the state's revenue for the last 2 fiscal years and what they are anticipating in 2021. And you can see that the largest area of personal income revenue is personal income, and that does come from our highest earners in the state. We're heavily dependent on those highest earners. And so as the economy shrinks, that personal income and other incomes will shrink, and that directly then correlates to Prop 98 and funding for schools. I'm not gonna go through all of this, but I just wanna show that the state's funding, overall funding in their state was directly related to what we got in Prop 98. And you can see in 2021, that's dropped significantly. And the way they've been able to maintain 1920 levels is by using the rainy day fund, moving funds around, and also counting on federal funds as well. Just a reminder of what happened in the Great Recession was that there was actually cuts, and we all felt them, and they really were taken on by school districts. And so what we were receiving in 2007-8 was about $5,700 per student, and the funding went all the way down to less than $5,000 in 9-10 until they started to recover. If they had maintained flat funding, school district would still have been losing money because the cost of living and expenditures during that time was still increasing. And so the next slide really shows that even if the state is able to maintain flat funding, districts will continue to lose ground in terms of their overall purchasing power and where expenditures go. And so these 2 slides kind of show, and this is an average, and we're pretty close to the average within the state for unified school districts. So the next steps for us is we're closing the books, and we'll present those to the board in the unaudited actuals. We're developing and refining the continuity plan. The first interim, we just want to let the board know to expect updates and significant modifications as the budget remains fluid. We're also working and we'll develop a cash flow plan for the board. And if we need to bring our consultants, Kegent, we'll do that to provide some perspective on options for districts in terms of to manage their cash flow and what is out there. In addition, we're excited to really report that we've been really doing good work with our Budget Advisory Council, and we had a meeting today, and we're breaking out into smaller groups, and we're really concentrating our efforts around revenue generation, both what the district can do and through the community givings, and also having a group look at efficiencies within the district where we can capitalize on the way we do things, and also capitalize on the education, the work we do, and how we may be able to utilize that to increase revenues for the districts through intellectual property. So a lot of exciting things going on there, and we hope to be able to report that back to the board. So with that, as I indicated, that's the lay of the land for the coming fiscal year. We'll have our audit, and the audit will get reviewed and prepared by an independent auditor and be brought both to our audit committee for review, and then finally back to the board in January. So I'd be happy to take any questions, and staff is seeking approval of our 45-day budget revisions.
Thank you, Mike. Board, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I just have kind of a clarification type of question. So with all the reductions that we have made, when are we looking at the adjustments on those?
So all of the reductions we have made are now incorporated into this 45-day budget. They are incorporated, and we are starting to implement those changes as we speak. So for example, if we were delaying a book adoption, those adjustments are made in the budget. If we were freezing positions, those positions have now been removed from the budget, so on and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just wanted to, while I know we've talked about this and it's great news that we don't have to make as significant of cuts this year that we originally were talking about. Could you just explain to the public what it means? I mean, if the federal dollars don't come, we are expecting these deferrals. But at the same time, those deferrals are getting the money that we're supposed to get this year gets pushed off into the next year, so next summer. That collection of those deferrals, of course, is dependent upon the state's economy in that following year as well. We talk about it with people to say that deferrals are budget cuts, but it's really hard to explain that. I'm concerned. I know we're going to be keeping a close watch on it, but I'm concerned that the deferrals are going to end up like it did in the Great Recession, which is that they go on for years, and it takes 10 years for us to get paid back those dollars. Could you talk a little bit about that process and how that affects the district?
Sure. So the best analogy is maybe a snowball effect, because as you said, the state economy has to recover to the point where it was previously, and then it has to recover greater to pay its basically its debt that it's passed on. So typically it would be almost would require a miracle for that to happen, right? And so what will most likely happen is the state next year will have another shortfall as to getting back to where they are. And so they will have to most likely extend deferrals, and so they will then have another deferral, right? And then slowly over time, every year, if the economy starts to recover, then they will pay some of that debt off. And so we will we're chasing it, right? So they will defer this one to next year, and then they will make another deferral again. And so what we do is we'll keep borrowing money from one year to another to pay that short-term loan. We will then do another borrowing to pay for the other short-term loan. And it's a cash flow analogy. So the best analogy I could use is that you were supposed to earn $15,000, but your employer only gave you $10,000. And so you use credit cards to pay that $5,000 gap so you can pay your bills. Those credit cards have let's say a 6-month repayment. When that 6 months come back, you may have to get another credit card to pay the other one. And so that's what ends up happening until the state can recover and pay its debt so that we're not borrowing. So they're passing on their funding onto basically districts who then have to borrow money from one source or the other. Now, in the past, the district, you can do interfund borrowing, but there's a limited amount of interfund borrowing, especially when we're talking about this large of a deferral. The district has at times, I'm still researching the details, borrowed money from the city. But most long-term borrowing the district did, I think it was almost 5 or 6 years, was through the markets and through trans. And so you borrow that money, you sit in the account, it helps you with your cash flow. Then the state gives you money back, you pay off that, and then you may have to do it again the next year because the state might do another deferral. So again, I know it's a long explanation, but I think the credit card analogy is the best one I can think of in terms of how it works for us.
So as it stands now, with our multi-year projection, we need to make significant cuts in the third out year.
Correct.
The year after next. And that assumes that we get paid the deferrals.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
So if we are deferred again, that increases the amount of expenditures that we have to pay in order to cover that.
Yeah, there will be borrowing. There will be borrowing done. Yearly borrowing done to manage that, and then that yearly borrowing does have costs associated with it.
Okay, so yeah, I know you're keeping an eye on it, and I know we're keeping an eye on it. But I feel like we feel like, whew, we didn't get hit by all these cuts this year, yay! And yes, that is true, but they didn't go away. They just got pushed out.
They got pushed out. It gives us time to think, and I thought that's why the strategic thinking, really looking at revenues, really looking at efficiencies, is important. And some of the reductions we make, if I go back to my slides, were in non-personnel areas. You may do it 1 year, you may do it a second year, but at some point you got to adopt those books. At some point, some of those non-personnel reductions that you did defer a year or two, you're going to need to address them. The last time we made huge reductions in facilities and maintenance and some of our operational things, right? And now we're paying for them. I mean, everything, there is a cost to deferring some of those type of non-personnel costs. Unless you can find it in some greater efficiency procurement or some other type of thing, when you do some of those non-personnel adjustments, at some point you're going to have to make adjustments and catch up.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ahmed, I have one. Do you expect to see significant savings from the school plants being essentially shut down, and saving of electricity, water, so forth?
We do expect some. It's hard to tell right now. I mean, again, everything depends. If we have an extended hot season and we have to maintain our landscaping, well, that's where the most amount of water is used, is really for those purposes of fields and stuff. Obviously, we do have a staff to do come in, so it may not be as large of a staff, and some of our physical education and big energy users like gyms and stuff like that are shut down. So we'll see some, but I don't think they're going to be significant enough to move the needle. Our insurance costs come in, and we have to pay that insurance bill with or without kids. So there might be on the fringes, but we're looking for them. We're trying to be really diligent on all purchases everywhere that we can.
Okay, thank you. Okay, not hearing any comments, unless as there is some. Is there a motion to accept the report?
I'll move acceptance of the 45-day revise.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Larson?
Aye.
Trustee Yee?
Aye.
Trustee Arkin?
Aye.
And Trustee Meyer, aye. Okay, 45-day budget revision is adopted.
Thank you. If I could just make one last comment, and it's just a big appreciation to our team. I want to just a big shout out to Tom Gray and Kathy and their entire team to do the work that they do. Without them, we couldn't do it. So I just want to acknowledge them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, 12.3, ratification of agreement with Crusaders Fencing Company, LLC, for new security fencing project at Pleasanton Middle School. Ahmed?
Great. I'm going to turn this over to John Chwastik.
Thank you, Ahmad. This is pretty much of a routine item, procedural in effect. It has already come to the board back on June 11th, and we went to the board for a one-time delegation of authority to the superintendent to enter into an agreement with the lowest responsive bidder, and then we would return to the board for ratification. This is exactly what we're doing tonight. So it's the fencing project at PMS Middle School, and the original construction budget was $800,000. The received low bid was $372,921, significantly less than we had thought it was going to be. We entered into an agreement with Crusader Fence Company on June 16th of this year. And so the recommended action tonight is for the board to authorize staff to ratify the agreement with Crusader Fencing Company LLC for the new security fencing project at Pleasanton Middle School.
Questions, comments?
This is I-1 funded stuff, right, John?
No, it is not actually.
No.
It's
Okay.
maintenance funding.
Maintenance funding.
No, John, this is a measure. This is a bond project.
For the
fencing project is a.
Oh, it's the fencing. I'm sorry. For some reason,
Yes,
I
painting
thought it
was not included. You're right. Yeah.
I'm getting those two confused. I apologize. It's bond.
Right. No problem.
Savings will be beneficial to other projects.
Yeah. They haven't started as yet, John?
Actually, they have. They're doing some work in the back of the campus. It's a gate that will be closing off the back to student access and parent access. So it'll be a keypad.
And gopher access? No, just kidding.
As far as I know, they don't do keypads.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
I'll go ahead and move approval of 12.3, ratification of agreement with Crusaders Fencing Company, LLC for new security fencing project at Pleasant Middle School.
A second?
I'll second.
Okay. Trustee Arkin?
Aye.
Trustee Yee?
Aye.
Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Larson?
Aye.
And Trustee Maher? Aye. Motion carries. 12.4, which this will be a public hearing, report, discussion, and possible action to sunshine the initial proposal for 2020-2023 successor agreement with the Classified School Employees Association. Mr. Hernandez, you're on.
Yes, good evening, President Maher, Superintendent Haglund, Board of Trustees, Cabinet, and staff and community. Before the board is item 12.4. It is to hold a public hearing, discussion, and action related to the sunshining of negotiation proposal for CSEA and the district. It is required that in an open meeting and hearing of the board be conducted in order to sunshine the proposed articles for negotiation. This is that hearing. The Chapter 155 of CSEA is proposing to open Article 2, Organizational Security, Article 3, Hours, Article 4, Leaves, Article 6, Evaluation Period, Article 7, Health and Welfare Benefits, Article 8, Wages, Article 10, Contracted Services, Article 13, Probation, Article 18, Terms and Reopeners, Article 21, Reclassification. The district is proposing to reopen Article 3, Hours, Article 5, Transfers and Promotion, Article 6, Evaluation, and Article 8, Wages. This is the complete list of proposed articles to be negotiated initially for negotiation with CSEA. The district does reserve the right to open other articles if need be, but that would require us to return to the board to publicly disclose those. But for now, these are the initial proposals for both CSCA Chapter 151 and the district.
Okay. We have a public hearing. Do we have, Patrick, do we have any comments from the community?
No public comments, President Maher.
Okay. With that, then I'll close the public hearing. How about the board? Do you have any comments or questions? Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion to sunshine the initial proposal for 2020-23?
I'll go ahead and move approval of 12.4.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
Okay, Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Larson?
Aye.
Trustee Arkin?
Aye.
Trustee Yee?
Aye.
And Trustee Maher? Aye. 12.4 carries. Okay, 12.5. Report, discussion, and possible action to approve a waiver application per Ed Code 44253.11. Waiver for the completion of staff development, CCSD, English learner coverage. Julio.
Yes, thank you. I have to apologize. And I've been accused of being really quick on these items. So I'll appropriately slow down for the next 8 items that are before the board. So I will have article section 12.5, a request for a possible action of a waiver. This waiver is a request under Education Code 44830A. The Board of Trustees may approve that a waiver application be submitted to the Commission on Teacher Credentialing for an applicant when a fully suitable credential candidate is not available. Jennifer Meyer is currently a teacher at Hart Middle School. She is completing the Career and Technical Education Program for Hospitality, Tourism, and Recreation. In order to get the English learner authorization she needs to complete the credentialing courses and 2 years of teaching experience to meet the English learner authorization requirements and clear the credential, we are applying for a waiver, should the board approve, so that she may fulfill the portion of this requirement. It is the assignment is the consumer skills. Currently, she is assigned to that position at Hart Middle School, grades 6 through 8. The staff recommends that the board approve us given the opportunity to file for the waiver for Ms. Myers in order for her to continue to teach with us.
Questions, comments? I take it she's still involved in going to school?
She is, and she needs, due to COVID-19, the waivers are before the board are because of COVID-19, they weren't unable to complete the testing.
Okay.
So the state allowed the districts to file waivers on their behalf in order for them to get more time in order to complete either the testing or the coursework.
Okay. Any comments again or questions? If not, is there a motion?
I'll move approval of, is it 12.5?
Second?
Second.
Okay. Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Larson.
Aye.
Trustee Arkin.
Aye.
Trustee Yee.
Aye.
And Trustee Maher, aye. 12.6, approve a waiver again, basic skills requirement.
Thank you, President Maher. So again, this is a request for an additional waiver for a different employee. Under Code 44830A, the Board of Trustees may approve that a waiver application be submitted to the Commission on Teacher Credentialing for an applicant when a suitable fully credentialed candidate is not available. The district began an ongoing search for an American Sign Language teacher in May. The search included posting the position in our district website, EdJoin, and contacting local universities. The district was fortunate to find a candidate, Kira Brito, who holds the skills required for the position. Kira Brito has completed a bachelor's degree in American Sign Language, Deaf Studies. She has been working towards completing her requirements to enter the credentialing program at National University when her CBEST exam was canceled twice due to COVID-19. Kira will be completing her enrollment into National University as soon as she is able to complete the testing. We are confident that Kira Brito's qualifications are successful, and we are recommending that the board approve that we file the application of waiver for the skills requirement, basic skills requirement with the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. Again, this is another circumstance where she was on her pathway to complete her requirement. Unfortunately, due to COVID, she was unable to do so. The state credentialing has allowed for these type of waivers for these individuals in order for them to proceed in being hired and also not excuse the testing or the requirements, but give them more time in order to complete them.
Okay, questions, comments?
Yeah, actually, I have a question on this one. In kind of more of a general, I guess, but anytime we approve a waiver like this, is there a certain amount of time that is allowed for them, certain deadline when they have to have all their credential done and all that?
Yes, that's been established by the state. So this is a new one. We normally do issue a waiver if we are unable to find somebody who's credentialed. It is a year It's sometimes longer depending if we give them a what's called a STIP or PIP, a short-term or a provisional internship permit. In this case, it's the testing. So I believe they're given a year, and we're waiting for hopefully the testing centers to reopen and allow them to test and be successful in that. Should they not be able to be successful within that year, we don't know what other guidance the state may issue us. I would assume that at that point, if they don't extend it, that the individual will not be able to continue.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or concerns?
I'll move approval of 12.6.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, Trustee Yee.
Aye.
Trustee Maher, aye. Trustee Arkin.
Aye.
Trustee Larson.
Aye.
Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Okay, it carries. Okay, 12.7, report discussion and possible action to approve the new job description for infant, deaf, and hard of hearing teacher.
Thank you. So this is a new job description. We currently do have a job description for 3 to adult. We do not have a job description which is infant to 3, which this provides that job description. This individual position will be an employee for Pleasanton Unified, but will be under SELPA, which means that the teacher will be not only working for Pleasanton, but all of the SELPA districts providing the deaf and hard of hearing for infant to 3. The request is that we approve this job description, as we at current do not have one.
Julio, I thought that 3 years old was the age when it was the district's responsibility to meet the needs of students with special needs, but we're taking infant now with the hard of hearing?
I'm going to have to ask for some support from Mr. D'Alonzo on that question.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. President Maher, so students from birth to 3, they have regional center services, something called an IFSP, which is an infant family service plan, which actually transitions into an IEP at the age of 3. And so school districts are responsible for infants who have IFSP services, and then they transition to 3 to 22. So you are correct, sir, that yes, 3 to 22 is our obligation, but for this particular group of students, our infants who have special needs or disabilities under an IFSP, we do have responsibilities to serve.
I think it's a good thing, certainly. Well, do you know where it will be housed?
So this particular position is within our SELPA office. We have a position available there, and it'll be housed within the SELPA. And Pleasanton Unified is the administrative unit for the Tri-Valley SELPA.
Good, I'm glad we're doing this. Good. Okay, any more questions or comments? Is there a motion? I'll make a motion that we accept 12.7, the new job description for infant, deaf, and hard of hearing teacher. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Trustee Yee.
Aye.
Trustee Larson.
Aye.
Trustee Arkin.
Aye.
Trustee Miller.
Aye.
And Trustee Maher, aye. 12.7 carries. 12.8, report discussion and possible action to approve the new job description for administrative assistant to the superintendent.
Thank you. So before the board is the job description for the administrative assistant to the superintendent. There has been some, asks and needs in the superintendent's office. One being having this position be public notary. The other is being able to assist in different changes that the superintendent has indicated there's a need. So this is a new job description, and it's being proposed for the board to consider. Again, one of the big highlights is that this individual, not preferred, but required to have that public notary license.
Questions, comments?
So yeah, that's new, right? The notary part. As somebody who used to be a mobile notary, is this something that the district would pay to have someone, take the test and pass and provide that? We wouldn't be expecting necessarily that an applicant already have this, would we?
We are expecting that this candidate is in the required section. If they were needed to renew that, I'm sure we could assist that individual to do that. And normally, from past experience, that has taken place. Currently, we do contract out with a mobile notary. I believe they charge us about $100 or so to come and sign paperwork for bonds and construction and those functions. Our Janet Wolfinger, that was now in purchasing, I believe had that role. Now we're simply contracting it out. So the ask is that that person be in-house, not only for convenience sake, but also for not contracting out that work.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want someone screened out, an applicant screened out, who is otherwise, could be a superlative candidate because they aren't already a notary. I would like, it to be
preferred
or will be required or whatever, but to say that somebody who applies already has to have that, I don't know.
If that's the will of the board, we could definitely place it and amend it to state preferred, as opposed to have the clearance.
Julio, how many applicants do you get like this?
As long as you're able to, I mean, I assume that if we hired someone who doesn't have it and we still want them to have it, then are we paying for them to go get their license and everything? Or I'm just trying to understand how this will work.
Well, I think that's the reason we placed it as having them already have that clearance, so that we wouldn't pay for, we normally do not pay for people to get clearances, similar to not paying for people to get the credential or having the bus drivers get certified to be bus drivers. We wouldn't pay for those licensures normally.
Joan, what's involved in getting a notary license? Like, how much does it cost and what do you have to do?
I do believe they do need to enroll in a notary coursework in order for them to complete that coursework and then file with the state of California to be able to be a public notary. So there is a coursework that they have to take. And then to obtain the license, I believe there's also a test. Then they have to then register with the state of California as a public notary.
Yes, as a matter of fact, our adult school offered that class that I took and took the test. when we were offering all different types of evening classes kinds of things. Yeah, I don't really know how to get around this. I don't really want to have to pay for it, to be honest, but I also don't want to have to screen a candidate out.
Julio, if we have a difficult time attracting quality people because of this, will you bring this back to the board?
If that's the will of the board, yes, absolutely. Again, we are not attempting to screen anybody out. We are attempting to try to make some efficiencies, as well as not having to contract out and have somebody in-house that's going to be able to provide that public notary work, particularly with documents related to our construction and our bonds. There are other documents that need a public notary. We now have to call and have a mobile come in and have that done. And there is obviously a charge to that. In any event, we could open it up and then go through the process. And if it's a challenge, we could bring it back if need be. But that would be the will of the board, or David, if you want to.
Julio, I have a question. Why is it this position that needs to have the notary? I mean, could it be a different position that we have in the district? And do we already have anybody who is a notary in our district?
Again, I believe that role used to be in Janet Wolfinger's. I don't believe that if she currently is. But the fact is that currently we are using and call in a mobile notary to be able to sign those paperwork. So that's the reason why it was brought into this position, so that it's official and we have somebody that we know is a public notary and is working for the superintendent to be able to have that paperwork signed.
David, your thoughts?
It would be possible for you to approve the job description with the amendment that states that the individual has or is willing to obtain. That's one way of getting around it.
That works for me.
Yeah, works for me.
I think that would be good. Either that or saying preferred, like Joan had mentioned, one or the other.
Yeah, I believe we have two notaries in the district right now. One of them is Janet Wolfinger and the other is Amy Nichols. But they're involved in other things. And so it's good to have it on job description. So it's not just we so happen to have somebody. So I'm supportive of the idea, but I would also be supportive of the idea of saying that it's either preferred or required and or the willingness to obtain.
So I make the motion to approve the job description with the amendment that the candidate has or is willing to obtain notary public certification.
I'll second that. Okay.
I made the.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You can read it. Go ahead.
No, I did make the correction or the edit that states candidate must be willing to obtain or have a public notary certificate.
Okay. Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Larson?
Aye.
Trustee Yee?
Aye.
Trustee Arkin?
Aye.
Trustee Maher? Aye. Okay. 12.9, report, discussion, and possible action to approve new job description for Coordinator 1, Educational Technology. Julio, you're on again.
Yes, so this is Coordinator 1, Educational Technology. So this position will be reporting to our Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning. There is a need now where we are in the virtual world, not only to have more people in our technology, both those who understand the curriculum and technology, as well as technology as a whole. So this job description specifically is to be able to have a skill set that will be able to integrate both the education piece as well as the technology piece. So there's a recommendation to approve this job description, as this need is now more needed now than ever, given our remote circumstance in teaching and learning.
And Julio, the funds for this are out of the CARES Act, so not out of the general fund?
I believe that is true. Mr. Shiko Salami, if you could.
Yes. So yes, the two positions, both it's
Almaji muted yourself.
Thank you. I hate when I do that. Yes, the two positions, the 12.9 is the Coordinator 1 of Educational Technology. That position is actually would report to under Business Services to our Technology Director, Senior Director. That would be funded through the CARES Act. And as I indicated, there are several pots of CARES Act, and they're specifically targeted for these type of things, and we'll be able to carry through the entire fiscal year and probably additionally all the way through September if needed. I also do believe that there'll be additional flexibility in the CARES Act funding, and we're waiting for those changes. The second position will also be funded through CARES Act. That's 12.10, the Innovation and Distance Learning. That's the position that will be reporting to teaching and learning. And the idea is that between the technology side and the teaching and learning, these two work together as a team to be able to seamlessly provide the support that's needed to our students and to our teachers in this digital integration of technology and support that's critical right now.
So the position is classified management. It will be a Coordinator 1, which is the highest of the coordinators, being Coordinator 2 being the lowest of the two.
They're both classified? Julio, they're both classified?
The position is a classified management for the coordinator 1 of educational technology, and the other one is a certificated manager coordinator 1. And that is the next item, which is 12.10. But the current item before the board is 12.9, which is a classified management position that will be reporting to the Senior Director of Procurement, which is Ms. Amy Nichols.
I have a question about, so two questions actually. So being that we would be funding these with specific dollars coming out of the CARES Act, are they in essence temporary positions because they have temporary dollars, or are they permanent positions that we then, since they're management, can eliminate at any time?
So the answer to question 1 is we are using CARES money and it is temporary. The answer to question 2, they work at the pleasure of the superintendent, who works at the pleasure of the board. So when money runs out, those positions can be eliminated.
So it's soft money.
Yes, it's very soft money. That said, our need for these positions, and because of the new nature of
the need is evident. I don't have an issue with the need. I just want to make sure that we're understanding that we're not we already have a lot of pressure on the general fund with the budget situation. So the fact that we have this need for this additional support for our programs in distance learning is real. And we have specific dollars in order that we can spend to do that work. So then, say for the sake of discussion, both of these positions get filled by existing employees. I'm just going to ask this question this way. So what are if people are certificated or classified and they move into management, do they retain any of their, I guess I want to call it bumping rights, or are they entitled to go back? Is a teacher, for example, entitled to go back into the classroom if their management position is eliminated? Conversely, or in addition, how does it work for a classified manager who was in our district in a classified position before?
Great questions. The answer is that they do not retain bumping rights or return rights to their previous represented position. Once they are in a management position, they are in a management position. Should they lose that position, they could reapply to a position in the certificated or classified ranks. But once they're in management, they sever those ties with the represented unit.
And is that the same as if they became an administrator, as a vice principal or a principal?
Teacher.
That's correct. The only difference as an administrator and certificated is that they retain, if they are removed, they retain 3 years. If they have those 3 years within the school district, they retain that seniority, meaning that there was people that were less than 3 years, they would be able to bump technically into position. But they only get 3 years of seniority. They don't get an automatic position within the district. In classified world, that they don't retain that. There is no such thing as a 3-year seniority gap. They do not retain any seniority or rehire rights back into an old position.
But 12-10, they could, right? 3 years?
Yes, excuse me, a certificated person who's worked in the district for over 3 years as a teacher has seniority back with only 3 years, but they're not guaranteed a position. They only have that 3-year seniority. And if they work as an administrator for over 3 years, they also retain those 3 years, even though they may not have worked as a teacher. But that is not a guarantee of a position, depending on their credential. Say, for instance, if it's a multiple subject credential, and there are teachers who are more senior than that person is, they don't retain that position because they only have 3 years, and if everybody else has 4, they wouldn't be offered a job necessarily. In other words, it's not automatic. They only are giving 3 years of seniority. That doesn't apply to classified individuals. They do not have any seniority to be able to bump back into any position.
I think that's the question Joan was asking.
Just wanted to understand.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we can take them separately then. 12.9, do we have a motion?
I'll move approval of 12.9.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Larson?
Aye.
Trustee Arkin?
Aye.
Trustee Yee?
Aye.
And Trustee Maher, aye. Okay, 12.10. Would you like to discuss it more, or have we done that already? If not, is there a motion?
Move approval of 12.10.
Okay,
Second.
Okay, Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Larson?
Aye.
Trustee Yee?
Aye.
Trustee Arkin?
Aye.
Trustee Maher, aye. Okay, 13 board reports and requests.
Yeah, I can just update a little on the city liaison meeting we just had. Just a few things, main things that we went over. The city explained all of the what's going on with COVID, with cases in town, with testing, all that sort of thing. They gave us a lot of data on that. They also, we talked about how, and it's been a community issue as well with the pools, the aquatic center being closed. So it's been, the city has said that they have to follow the rules of the county health department. And they're working very closely with the public health officer there. And as soon as we're able to and have guidance to open them when it's safe to do so, the city will. But at this time, they don't have that direction from the county. So that's kind of the status on that. And then finally, we kind of went over, we finalized some of the agenda items for our joint meeting, which I believe is on, I didn't write it down, but I believe it's on September 22nd, I think.
You're right.
For our joint city and school board joint meeting. So I think that's it. Steve, if I forgot anything.
This one is, and they talked about phasing. That's how they're getting their employees back to work. And I believe they're still on phase 1, maybe moving towards phase 2, but it's a long process. And depending on job description is how you fall into the phases. First meeting we've had since what, January?
Been a while, yeah.
Okay.
That's it for me.
Any other reports or requests?
I'll just, I actually tuned in to the Ed Coalition Zoom for a little bit today. It's kind of an interesting group because I guess unless you're somebody who was identified to be on the Ed Coalition, you don't get invited to this Zoom meeting, but it was with the public health officer. And I was just kind of curious about what he was saying, but there is a lot of interest, which I'm really glad now, that the county actually engage school board members as a group on a regular basis, so that, we can get information directly from them and be able to ask questions and just start to, learn about things, since we're the policymakers and we oversee all the kids in schools. So there definitely seems to be some movement around that. So just giving you guys a heads up that that'll be another Zoom meeting to tune into.
Okay. Anything else?
I have a couple of requests.
Okay.
So I already talked to Janelle about this. And I just would like the public to know that, our library assistants have been really, really busy getting school started. But they are talking about what we can do with school libraries. And so I'd like to, ask for, a report it's fine to be in the weekly update about, the ideas about how we might be making our library books accessible, especially for elementary kids who, really probably would really love to have some of that in their hands. And I know there are a number of retired teachers and some parents who'd be willing to volunteer if that's a possibility, if it can be structured in a way to be safe and have them volunteer. So I'd love to hear about that as people get a little settled and we can start rolling that rolling that out. So
I don't know, Joan, if you heard this, but I heard it. They can check out from the library, but it takes 3 weeks to get
something.
To get something at the library. So if the school district could somehow, as Joan is saying, work something out, and so our students can check out books, it certainly would be
Curbside books.
Yeah, like the public.
That would be
library.
awesome.
Yeah.
And
so-
all the
be
the
great.
retired people could like record themselves reading, and we could have a whole like library of, you know, storytellers or something. That'd be cool too. Yeah.
I have one more thing before we move on. And the other one is it would be great to have an update and a better understanding of our obligations under the Civic Center Act and for the use of our facilities by the public. So that's not something I'm very up on. And I've had some emails about that, especially in this time of COVID. So that would be awesome to have some additional information about that. Thank you.
Any other requests, comments?
Yeah, I had something else that I was thinking of. So like this weekend is supposed to be an excessive heat weekend. And normally, you know, there's, you know, cooling centers open, or people go to the mall, or they go to the movies or whatever. And now none of those are available. And I'm just wondering if there's been any conversations about being able to use, you know, any of our school facilities for that purpose. And I don't know what it looks like. I know there's requirements for cooling centers around ventilation and distancing and stuff. So I just don't know if we, you know, have ever thought about that, because if there's a power shutdown again, or there's fires, you know, there might be a bunch of different reasons that we might need. And it's along the same lines as what Joan was talking about around use of our facilities. So I guess that's a little bit more specific in the similar request.
Okay. Any other comments, requests? Our next board meeting is on Thursday, August 27th. And David, we possibly have one next week?
A special board meeting potentially on Wednesday of next week.
Wednesday of next week. That'll be posted, certainly. Okay. Hearing everything now. This meeting is adjourned at 8:52.